These people seem to be able to.
Yeah, I can make it then.
Okay, wait a minute here.
Did you start us yet?
Isn't Luke way in the back?
Good morning.
Luke's in the middle.
Welcome to
In the
Faith
middle?
No,
Family.
the last third.
Okay.
The last third. Go to
Today
the-
we're going to start in Luke chapter 16. Hopefully we get
Matthew,
through the
Mark,
whole
Luke.
chapter.
What are we
You're
doing?
upside
16?
down.
I'm
You're
sorry.
upside down, Jackie.
That would help. Thanks.
That was funny. But
She
my
thought-
name tag was upside down this morning.
She thought she was reading her Bible in Hebrew or something.
Yeah, I was just about to say, what version is this? Okay, Luke 16, did you
Yeah,
say?
Luke chapter 16.
Chapter 16.
All right. So what we have here is the parable of the dishonest manager, and that's interesting. I don't like the word dishonest because I don't think the dishonesty is a true dishonesty. But let's go ahead and read the story and see what we think of it. Okay. So, Bill, could I have you read?
I gotta get there.
Okay.
Yeah,
While
I'm
you're-
not sure I'm there either.
Oh, I'm gonna be there in a minute. Excuse me for being.
I'll go ahead and start.
I
So-
got it. I got it.
You got it? Okay.
16, oh, there it is. Okay.
The parable of the shrewd manager. Shrewd manager.
that's
You're
right.
dishonest?
Not shrewd.
Okay.
Jesus told his disciples, there was a rich man whose manager was accused of wasting his possessions. So he called him in and asked him, what is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management because you cannot be a manager any longer. The manager said to himself, what shall I do now? My master is taking away my job. I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. I know what I'll do so that when I lose my job here, people will welcome me into their houses. So he called in each one of the master's debtors. He asked the first, how much do you owe my master? 800 gallons of olive oil, he replied. The manager told him, take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 400. Then he asked the second, and how much do you owe? 1,000 bushels of wheat, he replied. He told him, take your bill and make it 800. The master commended the dishonest manager because he acted shrewdly. For the people of the world are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than they are with the people of light. I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourself, so that when it is gone, you'll be welcomed into their dwellings. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with very much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. But if you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? And if you have not been trustworthy with someone else's property, who will give you property of your own? No servant can serve two masters. Either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money.
Okay.
Stop there?
Yeah, that's good. So, what did your version say about in verse 1? It says he was accused of.
Manager was accused of wasting his possessions.
Wasting. Okay, remember last week we had the story of the parable of the prodigal son. Remember what we said? What prodigal means? wasteful.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, so here's this almost the same story,
What verse are
only
we on?
he, instead of wasting
16.
his father's or
16.
his inheritance, he's wasting his employers, his masters. Isn't that interesting?
And the messenger, talks about he's running up huge personal expenses.
Yeah,
He
he's
is.
living extravagantly on someone else's
Yeah.
money.
He's taking advantage of his position.
Yeah, taking his privilege.
Doesn't that sound very familiar to today?
Yes, it does.
Well, people have been doing it for centuries.
Yes.
The point that I wanted to make is he's not accused of stealing money. He's not accused of embezzling money. He's accused of wasting what is not even his. So in a sense that is embezzlement, but at the same time it isn't. And like I said, there's a interesting parallel between this and the prodigal son story. Let's see. When he realizes what he has done and that he's going to have to be brought accountable for it, what is his plan? How will he what will he do when he no longer is able to work? Because he says he can't dig ditches, so what's he going to do? He's
People will take him in. He'll convince people to take him in.
He'll convince people to take him in. And how does he do that?
Probably by saying, "Look what happened to me, and I was wrong." Or he would.
But he
manipulate
doesn't.
the
He's too
story.
proud to beg.
No.
So that would be kind of a begging.
He reduces their debt.
Yeah,
He
he
reduces
reduces
their
they'll be
debts.
friendly to him.
Yeah.
But
Scratch my back, I'll scratch your back,
But
right?
isn't the debt to the owner?
Yes.
That's why it doesn't make any sense to me.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. You borrow from me, and I give it. I borrow from you, right? And I give you back the same amount. Is that what happens here? Or when I borrow from you, do I get charged an interest, or I have to pay you back a little bit?
I owe you X, and the manager says, let's cut it in half.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I read this.
Okay,
Yes, me
yeah,
too.
but what I'm saying is normally when you borrow from someone,
You pay interest.
you pay some kind of interest, some extra,
Yeah, okay.
and maybe he's trying to knock off a lot of that interest that he's
50% interest.
yeah the first one, yeah. The second was only 20%, so he'll go. He must not like that guy too much. Anyway, but he wants to make friends, so when he can't, they'll welcome him in.
Conniving little fella, isn't it?
Shrewd is the word.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. In verse 9, it says, "And I tell you, make friends." This is what Jesus is saying. Make friends for yourself by means of dishonest wealth. What's yours say, Cindy?
Unrighteous mammon.
Unrighteous mammon. That's
It just says, concentrate your attention. I want you to be smart in the same way, but for what is right, using every adversity to stimulate you to creative survival, to concentrate your attentions on the bare essentials, so you'll really live, and not complacently just get by on good behavior.
okay.
Mine just says use worldly wealth.
Worldly wealth.
Doesn't say
What-
it's bad wealth.
No.
I mean, just worldly wealth.
Here's the thing. What does yours say? Unrighteous mammon.
Unrighteous mammon. Whatever mammon means.
Mammon. Everybody says mammon's money, but mammon's more like all of your possessions. So it's your wealth. So unrighteous wealth. I think this is the point here. You don't get rich by being a truly honest person.
I think that's totally wrong.
You don't get rich, this kind of rich, by being honest. Somewhere down the
And
line,
generous.
you're exploiting your labor, you're overcharging for your product, you're doing something that makes you more than everybody else.
If you think that that's the only way people get rich, I think that you're absolutely totally wrong.
Well, I think he's talking about the mass accumulation of wealth.
My Bible doesn't read like his. It's the NIV, so I don't understand that.
I think
There's no
he's-
connotation here of ill-gotten gains to earn wealth. There is in the beginning.
There is. I just said it. Means of dishonest wealth.
I tell you, use worldly wealth.
Worldly.
Well, what's
And this one
what you
says,
earn in the world?
do
Okay,
the
hold
same
on.
thing, but what is right. That's the
Let's go.
connotation that there's something not right. What is the Greek? I mean the
That's what
Hebrew.
I'm going to go for.
We're in Greek.
Yeah, we're in Greek. Luke 16. The word,
So 9.
dishonest. Dishonest. It means adikia. Adikia is activity which is unjust, unjust deeds, unrighteousness.
Okay, the translations are wrong.
Well, it's just, I say that all the time. When I talk about the worldly, what does it mean to be worldly? To seek power and control. And so I think that's what it's going on, that idea of the worldliness, not the kingdom. And we'll get to that in our next story, talking about the kingdom. But here, it's like, think of it this way. Mark Bezos, is it Mark? Jeff Bezos, right? How did he get so rich?
Yeah, good idea.
Okay, he had a great idea. But how does he get so rich?
Exclusive. Took up.
Go talk to those people that work in his warehouse where they won't let them go to the bathroom.
Well, I don't even know that. They
Don't-
drove a lot of people out of business.
Well, that too. That too. You come
They have to
in.
keep working and not go to the bathroom.
Sears
Is that
and
it?
Robux and
So he's
Control.
if he's making that much money, why are the people that are working for him making minimum wage?
not
Or-
anymore.
You talking about Amazon?
Yeah.
They always were paying higher than minimum
Not
wage.
anymore, but,
But-
I think
but-
the difference here is in that when it says worldly, because if you had a great idea and you were living by biblical principles, you would share it. You would give it all away.
Yeah.
I
And
think
then
what
we're
they're
gonna get-
talking about
that's-
in the mass accumulation of wealth is when people, the more, I think that what happens is people become less generous. But I do agree. Well, Amazon does share, but there have been some bad
But
business
here's
practices.
my point. Here's my point.
Just like with Walmart.
With this wealth, with this,
I
yeah,
used
that's
to
what
work
I'm
for
saying.
Walmart, and
Just
I know.
like with when you get to those big companies, there's always people that they're stepping on, that they're exploiting to get up to that principle.
Yeah.
Why is it? Look what just happened. What just happened with the CEO of that healthcare,
Yeah.
that insurance company, right? And why are people not sympathetic to him? Well, because if you look at the history of that healthcare insurance company, they're denying claims all over the place. People that really need the healthcare.
Is this where the fundamental Christians get the belief that wealth is evil?
That's the idea,
I would
but
say
it's
totally
not
different.
that. It's not that. It's not that wealth is evil. It's the overabundance of collecting wealth and not being able to share it. And I think that's what Jesus is saying here. He's just saying that these people that have an overabundance of wealth and aren't taking care of the people that they should be taking care of, that's wrong. And this guy being shrewd, because he's out the door. He's out the door.
Well, I think Jesus, what the parable really says is that I don't think it's necessarily even talking about wealth so much as about being creative in how you live and how you share the gospel too.
Mhm.
I think it's talking about use the worldly systems
Yes.
to advance the kingdom.
I'll go with that.
And I think we can all agree there's a lot of evils in the mass accumulation of wealth. But in our society, we have to accumulate some wealth in order to survive and to pass the years that we work. So I don't think there's anything wrong with accumulating wealth. But I do feel like these people, like Bezos and Musk, they've done a lot of things along the way that really compromised their morals, and they've brought people along with them. Sure, people that the engineers at Tesla they it's just like when they started up FedEx and they couldn't afford to pay the pilots. They paid them in stock, and now these are multimillionaires. So there's things that happen along the way that something that started off as a great idea has become perverted into something that is now not necessarily great for the world.
This commentator here, he's a contemporary F.F. Bruce, if you know who that is. He's really famous for his New Testament commentaries. Anyway, this is what he says. For although worldlings, meaning people that live by the world, may labor under the delusion that they are free and independent, everyone who makes the accumulation and enjoyment of earthly goods the main object of his life is under the domination power thereof, and is every day performing servile labor for mammon, for wealth. So even the people that are rich, they've traded in this idea of living in a community, but they're using people to gain more.
Take Andrew Carnegie.
Okay.
Okay. He did all kinds of nasty things to get hold of U.S. Steel.
Mm-hmm.
He got hold of it, and then he sold it.
Mm-hmm.
But he sold it for gold bearer bonds or something, and then he tried to give it away. And had all this wealth, he tried to give it away, and he died before he could give it all away. He built libraries all over the place, but he couldn't give it all away. But he tried to.
But there was a point in his life when he said, "This isn't everything."
Well, he said, I had all this, I had to do something with it. But is that wrong? I mean, the bad that he did to get hold of U.S. Steel, or to run U.S. Steel as he did, ended up doing good.
I think that the main point, like Cindy said, it's not that we have wealth, but it's the idea of that's the most important thing in our life, and so we got to illuminate more and not taking care of the people around us.
So I think it's being skeptical and wanting to protect your investment or your wealth, however large or small it may be, is a human nature thing. So like if you see someone on the side of the road and they're begging and you're like, well, if I give them money, what are they going to do with it? If that's your first thought, I mean, I've thought that way for a long time. I wouldn't give people money. But now, whenever we see somebody, we do, because it's not my responsibility what they do with it, right? So it kind of changes your perspective from a worldly perspective to a kingdom perspective, whereby maybe if I give this person money, I'm spreading the kingdom of God just for that moment. They can eat or they can do something that brings them joy, even if it's something I don't condone or whatever. I think is when we start looking at our wealth in ways of helping rather than ways of hoarding,
Yes.
that's where,
Exactly.
and sometimes giving hurts because you may not have it to give, and especially this time of year, and we're doing a lot of things. I know everybody here is on limited income, and we're doing a lot of things with these turkeys and with the kids we're getting things for, but yet somehow we all sacrifice a little bit and make it happen, and we make a big impact. So I think that's also part of what this parable can bring to you, is like, instead of thinking about what I can do with this money for myself and my people that I love, how can I use some of it to further the kingdom, because that's what our real goal should be. Even if we have to use worldly systems to do it.
Yes. Yeah.
Like your money earns interest and you use that. You know what I'm saying? It's like
Yeah.
we're using those systems, but we're not living an extravagant lifestyle. By we're still being generous and trying to exercise kingdom living.
Yeah, I think that was the main. You said extravagant, and that's kind of like that's what I was trying to point out to about squandering the idea of prodigal son. That's what he did, right? Got his inheritance and he went and he blew it on everybody, making sure everybody had ice cream and something to eat. No, he went and he blew it on himself, and instead of taking care of it and using it in a way that would be righteous.
But isn't the manager wrong in reducing the bill to the two debtors? Seriously, I mean, it belonged, that money, that debt was owed to somebody else. He cut it in half.
I think the point is that one, he got a lot of the money back, or a lot of the
Two wrongs make a right.
No.
I think it's the same principle.
So
like,
wait a minute. Time out.
hold on a second.
Time out. What are you saying? That Jesus is telling us to go and steal and
No.
I don't know. I'm not saying that, but that is what the parable says in black and white.
Well, it
No, it
says
doesn't.
here, but the master praised the crooked manager. And why? Because he knew how to look after himself. It's the same kind of principle as like, I owe the TGH $1,000. I don't have $1,000. I can't pay them. They call me and they say, but if you pay me $600, we'll wipe it off. All of a sudden now, I'm going to pay that. I think it's kind of the same principle.
Here's a good
Whereas they
one.
may not have got the money if they had compromised a little
I'll make
bit.
it personal, right? I went to school, my Bible college, and I took out a loan because I was stupid. And they were like, oh yeah, you have to get this loan so you can do this and do that, right? And I took out a loan. My loans were $12,000 when I left college. I still haven't paid them off. I owe $20,000 now in interest fees because I've been paying the least amount. Now, since then, that was my undergraduate. Since then, I've went to seminary, and I finished my undergraduate in the military, and I was able to go to seminary, and I went to get my doctorate degree, which I'm on sabbatical from right now. And I didn't have to take out a loan for any of those. But I still owe all that money in interest. Why?
Because you're talked into it.
Because of that's the way the system works. That's what they told me. You got to get a loan to go to school, and you got to do this. And I did all that, and now it's like, wow, $20,000, and I'm paying almost nothing just to keep it going.
Well, first of all, I don't think this belongs. I think this is the manager who was at fault to begin with, is being taught a lesson by Jesus.
Oh,
He's saying, now you got to protect yourself when you go out, when you lose your job, and you better be prepared. So he does this, and the owner says, "Hey, I'm glad. I guess you got the message. You shouldn't have done what you did, but you were creative in what you did over there.
Why
I'm
would
still going to fire you."
What? Yeah. Why would he think that though? What does that say about the manager if he condones what he did?
Well, the manager, who is Christ in this case, is Jesus in this case.
Okay, I could see that. I could see how you could say that. Okay, we beat that one to death. Let's go on to the next, because I want to get through this next two. It's the law and the kingdom. I hate that title because there's something about the law and they just drive that home, and I think that's wrong. That's not what's being brought out here. Anyway, the Pharisees, who were lovers of money, heard this, and they ridiculed him. So he said to them, "You are those who justify yourselves in the sight of others, but God knows your heart. For what is prized by human beings is an abomination in the sight of God. The law of the prophets were in effect until John came, Judge John the Baptist. Since then, the good news of the kingdom of God is proclaimed, and everyone tries to enter it by force. But it is easier for heaven and earth to pass away than for one stroke of a letter in the law to be dropped. Anyone who divorces his wife and marries another commits adultery, and whoever marries a woman divorced by her husband commits adultery. What?
This is really interesting, and in the message it says, basically that they use their divorce to cover their lust in adultery.
Okay, that's good. Notice, what is the last words in the story before this? You cannot serve God and wealth, God and mammon.
God and the bank.
Right. And then it starts out, the Pharisees who were
money obsessed,
lovers of money. So you can see how he brought those two things together.
I stand corrected in what my position was in the beginning there, because he flat tells you what the story's about.
Yes.
He doesn't hide it.
Yes. People that are in love with gathering wealth. And why do they gather wealth? Well,
well, if wealth is what your only motivation is.
For what is prized by human beings, right? And we heard the story about Jesus saying, when you come in and you think you're an important person, take the lowest seat, because somebody more important than you will come in and then make you move down. It's kind of that thing.
Isn't this a lesson for us? When we see the world prizing and placing value in something, we should turn from it.
Definitely.
Should be a flag.
Definitely.
Right. That's something that I used to try and teach my kids, but that's not something that I've always done myself, you know? Now this big push in the world is influencers. I'm going to influence you to buy something. So And so whenever we see something, it's like automatically we should not want that because everybody else wants it. And that's something that Ed really brought to my life. Is like, if everybody else wants something, I want nothing to do with that. If it's something that's really popular, it's like, I don't want anything to do with that. And so it's like, that's something really for us to think about. If we see the world catching on to something, maybe we should be like, take a step back and say, let's give this a second look.
We're catching on to Christianity.
Yeah.
I'll give you a little. She made me laugh because when we got married, I think DVDs had just come out. How long was it before we got a DVD player? It must have been 4 or 5 years. Everybody had DVD players before we did, and it was kind of that same thing, you know. It's just gonna burn out, because when I was a kid, there was VHS and there was Beta. Remember Beta?
Beta didn't go.
Yeah, Beta didn't go. So I was kind of like, everybody's jumping on this bandwagon. This is gonna go away. Well, it took longer, but.
But that's a good test for us as a church.
I think so too.
As a kingdom of believers, is that we should kind of hold things in skepticism when we see the world latching on to
Yeah, exactly. And the other point here is everyone tries to enter the kingdom by force. Isn't that true? I'm going to buy my way in. You know, what was the old what's that old song? She's buying a stairway to heaven.
Nice song, but was it really?
Well, I'm saying they have that mentality that if I have enough money, then you'll accept me, and we do that in our social life too, right? We tend to lean towards people of the same socioeconomic, and then we look up to the people. Oh, they've got so much money. Did you see their house? It's so beautiful. And oh, did you see the car they drive? All these things are external, and we should not place value in them. we should place value in the people. And I think that's what this is saying. And when we get to the next story, you'll see it more. So, Jesus says that violence by force, that word there in Greek, it's talking about using violence to make it happen. But it is easier for heaven to pass away than is one stroke of the letter of the law to be dropped. See, that's one of those ones where they say, oh, you got to obey the law, and all these Christians go back to the law, and you're not allowed to do this, and you're not allowed to do that, and you're an abomination if you're LGBTQ, or if you and they point to these things, and they say, but what does it say there? Until John came. Since then, the good news of the kingdom of God is proclaimed. What does it say? This is our stuff here. What does it say in Matthew 22:36? I'll give you a hint. It's the greatest commandment.
Love.
Love God, and love your neighbor as yourself. And it goes on to say at the end, all of the prophets and the law hang on these two commandments. So, if we focus on those two commandments, instead of going back and look at every letter and everything of the law, that's what John is proclaiming. That's what Jesus proclaimed. Okay. And then the other thing about the divorce. Why would a man divorce his wife?
She got fat. Oh, I think she got heavy.
She wasn't pleasing to the
Eye.
to the people around. You know, if I have
His friends.
If I have a wife that looks like that, you know, I might lose some influential friends or something. You know, but there's another reason. Here's a question: how did George Washington get so rich?
How did he what?
George Washington. How did he gain most of his wealth?
Land grant.
What's that?
Land grant.
It was expensive.
Well, he married it, but
Martha. Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, she was. I think she was a widower, but she had lots of land and everything. So she was. So he married into that. Put that into this. I mean, I know it doesn't say it there, but put that into this context. And
married for love, but love with his money.
yeah, exactly. I married her for love. I loved for money. Okay, so these are kind of all connected, and it's talking about worldly possessions, worldly power. And it says that the Pharisees were lovers of money or lovers of wealth. And then we get to the story of Lazarus and the rich man.
And, you know, and that's sort of the story of upper society.
Yes.
It's a lover of wealth.
Yes.
So you can, if you're not in the upper society, you would, you know, be jealous of them. You could be envious of them, is a better word, I guess. And they should change.
Yeah.
But remember the person that wanted to get into heaven, and Jesus told him,
Go sell everything.
"Go sell everything you got," and he walked the other
couldn't do
way.
it. He
That's
couldn't
right,
do
that's
it.
right.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so are you all familiar with the story of Lazarus? I don't want to read it because we're really out of time.
Yes, 10:05.
Okay.
Wake
So-
up, Lazarus.
So,
Come on
so the rich man, he wears fine linen. He's got purple. Purple is a thing of royalty because he dyed stuff, and if you dyed it purple, usually it was expensive. Anyway, so he lives this extravagant lifestyle, and at his gate to his house, there's a poor man named Lazarus. Interesting note here. Lazarus, the only parable in the New Testament where Jesus actually uses a name. Why is that?
Was this the same Lazarus he raises from the dead? Is it?
That's the question, is it? I don't know. But here's the suggestion. This come from this NIV commentary. Craig Evans. He said that there's two reasons. One was that this was foretelling, or John's story wasn't a true story, but a fictionalization of this parable. Or two, when the scribes was able to read John's letter of Lazarus and read this, they said, "Oh, that's Lazarus." And so as they're scribing it, they're copying it down. There was a poor man covered in sores. Oh, but that's Lazarus. There was a poor man named Lazarus. And so that automatically takes you to that story of Lazarus and John. I believe that second one, that somehow a scribe said, "Oh, that's definitely Lazarus. Jesus is talking about Lazarus here." And so they put him in there. I don't believe that it was originally in there, I know. So, story goes, rich man dies, Lazarus dies, and they're in heaven. There's this huge chasm between them. The poor guy, Lazarus, is on this side. Dives, that's a Latin term for rich. Instead of the rich man, they call him Dives. Dives is on this side in torment. It's hot. He's thirsty. He has nothing to drink. And he says to God, Father Abraham, let him go and dip his water and just put water. He says, can't do that. There's a chasm. He says, well, then tell Lazarus to go back to earth and warn my brothers. And he says, even if you do, they won't believe you. They didn't believe Moses. And so that's how the story ends. If you do not listen to Moses and the prophets, neither will they be convinced, even if someone rises from the dead. So see that? Again, going back to the idea of Lazarus being raised from the dead.
Did you slip into Dante there for a while?
Dies. Yeah, exactly. That's Dante's levels of hell.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. From chapter 15 until we ended here, it's the same message. It's the same message over and over. We got the lost sheep, but we take care of everybody. We got the lost coin, even though we have all these other coins, but that's important too. And what happens when they do find those things? They rejoice. We have the lost son, or the prodigal son, who comes back, and they rejoice because that one is important, even though he went away. All right. Now we're talking about money, and these people aren't getting it. They want money, and they don't want God. They don't want community. They don't want people. They think that all they need is money, and of course, money is power, and that's that power and control thing. And then Jesus says that the Pharisees were lovers of money. And then he goes and he tells the parable of Lazarus and the rich man. And where they end up, all that is together. In that huge 2 chapters, all those stories kind of run together. And the moral of all those stories is, in the kingdom we share everything. We don't need to be extravagant. We don't need to accumulate wealth. All we need is what we need to live on. Think about that. If everybody just had what they live on, I'm preaching, I'm not teaching here. If everybody had just took what they needed, would we have famines in our world today? Would we have all this turmoil if everybody shared everything? When we say that God is a God of abundance, it means that he made enough. God made enough for everyone. But yet there's those people that want to hoard.
That's a little extra.
That's the difference between worldly living and kingdom living. Okay, I'll stop there and I'll stop preaching.